Horobi was all over the place, and I feel like it's just a lot of emotional damage.
Start us out.
What do you mean start us out?
Start us out.
I don't. This is not my channel. Welcome.
Hey, I'm Achilles, and today we are talking about
Zero-One.
There you go. This is Brianna. She is my fiance. Today we are going to do a whole season wrap up on Kamen Rider Zero-One. We are going to be breaking down this season in 4 different categories, and those categories are
Suits, gimmicks, don't tell me. Plot.
That was the last one, yeah.
And the third one is the sagas.
Characters. So, suits, gimmicks, characters, and plot. And the plot will be divided into sagas. Each one we're going to give through a 1 through 5 grade. And at the end, we'll tally all those grades up. And give the whole season a grade. Because that's what we do. Like a teacher, like school. You okay with that?
I'm going to give it A through F.
Let's get to it. First up, Hiden Aruto, Suits, 0-1, Metal Cluster Hopper, 0-2, Arc 0. What do you think?
Not like the 0-2 suit.
Why?
I hated the 2 big red slashy 2. It looked like a check mark.
That's the best part. It's supposed to be his scarf.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah.
It just seemed impractical. Like, it was just there, and he couldn't turn his head without, like, smacking himself in the face.
No, he was fine. He just moves his whole body. He's ready for it.
But you gotta move your neck. Like, moving your body just looks awkward.
No, like Batman. When I first saw the 0-1 suit, I thought, like, man, this is super cool, so simplistic. I love it. Like, it's so sleek. And then his other suits kept coming out, and I'm like, okay, this is still cool and simplistic, but, like, maybe too simplistic and too sleek. And I think that's what I ended up with 0-2, is thinking, like, if that's what his final form is supposed to be, which wasn't really his final, like, he had 2 forms after that. If that's what his final form is supposed to be, it's a little too plain on top of, like, any other final rider suit we've seen before.
Yeah, I think it was hard for me to tell the difference between the suits before the big old 2 on it versus, like, the Gai Amatsu suits. There was a clearer difference between, and especially when he was using different lock seeds, there was a clear difference when he was like banana or something else versus like his other forms.
Yeah, when Aruto would use the progress keys, like almost the only thing that would change would be his faceplate.
Yeah.
And the other stuff, like the chest and stuff, kind of bulged out, but other than that, it wasn't really much change. Next up, Kamen Rider Vulcan. My favorite rider of the season. We've got Shooting Wolf, we've got Assault Wolf, and we've got Rampage Wolf. So, the Kamen Rider Vulcan suits, what did you think?
I liked his suits way better.
Why?
I don't know, they were just more interesting, and his sequence was a lot better. Like,
oh yeah, his henshin
he punched
sequence.
A bullet. Like,
his first one, he straight up punches a bullet.
Right.
His final henshin sequence, he uppercuts the 2-headed wolf. Like, it was insane.
All of his sequences were way better. His suits were way more interesting to look at. They had more colors in them.
Yep.
I don't know. I just thought I thought he was a better rider. Like, suit wise, sequence wise, he was much better in my opinion.
I think it was really odd to see the secondary rider get the power up where like all the gimmicks combine, because Rampage Wolf is all the animals in one.
Yeah.
And so that was really odd, but at the same time, super dope, because if you look back at it, like, Aruto didn't need it, so to give it to Fua made the most sense. Number 3, Kamen Rider Valkyrie, Rushing Cheetah, Lightning Hornet, and Fighting Jackal. One of them technically not a rider suit, technically a monster suit. But what did you think about Valkyrie?
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk when we get into characters and we'll really talk about it, because I'm disappointed by her rider and how her writing, like, how that ended up. Suit wise, I thought it was cool. I don't know, I just thought the suit fit really well. I think that some female writers I've seen in the past, their suits are like not made the best for a woman's body. So I think I think that I appreciated that about her the most. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about Fuwa and Yua too is that their suits look so tactical, like they're part of this special defense force and they look like it. I really loved Lightning Hornet and I wish it would have got more. I wish she would have got more play on air altogether, but Lightning Hornet specifically, I wish she would have got more. Fighting Jackal wasn't too big on it. Glad it didn't last very long.
Like her as a writer?
No, being the Fighting Jackal
Her
style.
overall as a writer did not last very long.
She was not on it. She lived through the end, but she was not on camera very, very often as a writer. Next up, Jin and Horobi, our main bad guys for a heavy part of the series. What did you think about their suits?
I mean, Horobi had that suit for most of the season.
Horobi had that suit for all of the season, besides the last episode.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked that his was so versatile, like the tail that would come out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool. I guess Aruto had the like hopper, the grasshopper that would come out and help him. But I also feel like that was only during his sequences when the grasshopper would come out. Or like
Jin used the scorpion
all the time.
All the time. The tail came out.
Yeah, until Aruto got the like shining hopper attack. Mm. Where the like little baby hoppers would come out and protect him.
Metal cluster hopper.
There we go, metal cluster hopper. But I like that he used the tail all the time. And I think I like the same thing about the Falcon, that Burning Falcon, that he had the wings.
Yeah, the wings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jin's first form doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think that's because, to me, Burning Falcon is the best suit in this whole series. It's just so sleek and everything, and like the red on it, it's just so striking. And the last suit we are covering, Kamen Rider Thouser, Gai Amatsu, your least favorite character of this whole show. But how did you like his suit?
I don't know. I didn't like what is the point of all those horns?
I love the horns.
I don't.
Like Thouser to me in the series does his motif the best. Like when he henshins, it says when the 5 horns cross, and like there's the 5 horns crossing right there, presented by ZAIA. Everything about it is just so to a T that works so well. Like they committed to it the entire time, and it's a beautiful suit.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't like his weapon. I feel like we didn't talk about weapons for the other people besides like Fuwa with his gun a little bit, but like I didn't get his weapon. The jacking break. I don't understand.
The Thouser jacker. He would jack everybody else's.
But they still
powers.
See, that's what I thought it was supposed to be. But everyone still had their powers.
Yeah, he would just like jack their data, like plug it in a USB.
But then if you steal the data, then they shouldn't have the data anymore, but they always still did.
And he's just copy and paste.
Then you don't call it jacking because you're not stealing it.
Just Thouser copy paste.
I guess. I do like that it was different than a typical bad guy suit because it was a lot of white and a lot of like I think his whole persona had a lot more white in it, which is not typically a color trend that you see with the villains. Normally it's a lot of black and blues and reds.
Yeah, it's probably the brightest suit in this whole show, actually.
Yeah, so I think that was also interesting considering that Aruto was black and green for most of the time, or like some variation of that. It kind of flipped it on its head because even though he wasn't the main bad guy, he was still a significant bad guy.
He was a bad guy for a lot of it.
Yeah. And it just was very interesting that they chose those color schemes because it's not typical of what you would see. Yeah. So I guess that's a plus for his suit. It was more interesting, but I don't like his weapon. I don't like the horns.
So, Bree, final grade for the suits as a whole. You said you were doing F through A on a teaching scale. What do you give them?
A C.
A C? Why?
I think they just weren't as interesting. Like, as much as I haven't watched much of X-Aid, but at least those suits were like interesting, and they start off as like little chibi 8-bit guys that evolve into something else. I just feel like Aruto had too many forms, Horobi had not enough forms. It was just kind of all over the place, and the belts themselves, like even Drive, I haven't watched, but like I look at the Drive belt and I was like, that's a belt that I want / we have. And this, I don't have any urge to buy these belts. I don't have any urge to like buy figures of these as much as other seasons, which is why I'd give them that C rating.
I'm gonna give them a B because like the minimalistic style of it I love so much. I just think that minimalistic style lasted too far into the later forms, if that makes sense. Yeah, arc 1 was just, it was Zero-One black and white with a messed up eye, and it looks super cool, but 45 episodes in, I think I was kind of looking for something else in terms of what, you know, what's gonna sell me on a fig art or something like that.
Right, and I think there was just so many new forms of Aruto at the end. I just feel like we got 3 new forms in 5 episodes, and I don't know. It felt more like a cash grab to sell toys than it did like actually important to the story sometimes, which is why just, yeah, a solid C.
Speaking of cash grabs,
yes.
Gimmicks, progress keys, belts. Some people say the gimmick is the progress key. Some people say the gimmick is the belt because this season had 9 of them.
Yeah, I mean, and like I just said, like if the gimmick is something that you're supposed to want to buy, and I did not want to buy the belts. They felt very clunky and chunky and like not something I would ever want to display, or like maybe the progress keys, but even then I would only want Assault Wolf because I like the way Fua opened it so much and like Force opened it. I don't know. When you have the lock seeds, like the lock seeds are simple and cute. They fit in your hand and it's a little fruit that you literally get to slice with a knife. Even Drive are like little cars that you get to flip around. They're like fun toys. These look like little boxes that you just like flip and put in like a key. It just didn't feel like a kid's toy or anything I'd want to play with. Yeah,
I don't know if they look nice to like display or anything like that. The belts, as far as the belts go, I liked the Zero-One belt because of how mechanical it felt. You know, he inserted the progress key, the whole thing shifted around. But then in the end, like the last 4 belts were the Zero-One belt, but with something on top of them. Even the rider we got in the last episode, his belt was just a Zero-One belt, and then it had like a blue screen on top of it after that. So I think the peak of this was right when Jin got his slash riser, and you knew it was just the shot riser with like a sword pasted on top of it because it looked the same, but it looked awesome. Like at least it was a recolor completely. Like at least you can hold them next to each other and say, okay, these are 2 separate things. Whereas by the end, even the arc driver was just the Zero-One driver.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I don't know, I also found it hard to tell the difference sometimes between like what belts were doing what, because they had like the rider belts were different than the belts that were making the Humagears transform.
Oh yeah, like the raid risers and everything.
And I think that storyline also kind of got left nowhere because they were like, raid risers, everyone's got to buy one, and then the next episode like it had disappeared. And so I thought that was very interesting. Maybe that's more plot, but I think it just didn't sell me as much.
Because they're all for sale now on Premium Bandai. You can get all 9 belts right now.
Really?
Yeah.
All 9?
All 9 belts right now, including the one that just showed up. But final grade for Gimmicks. Progress keys, belts.
I have a question before I give a final grade. Does Thouser's dog, the dog Thouser, does that count as a gimmick? Because that affects my grade.
No, his dog does not count. His belt counts as a gimmick, which was dope having the cool, like, I think Thouser's belt was really the only innovation on the belt that we got, or the driver that we got in the show, is like, okay, I can see a logical next step going from the Zero-One driver to the Thouser driver of him using the 2 progress keys, and it's just visually, you're like, oh, that guy has 2, so he's obviously stronger.
This thought just occurred to me, but these belts also felt a little weak. Like, I don't remember any other season you've told me about or Gai-M where like belts just literally all got destroyed at the end of the season. The only one who was a rider by the end was Horobi, Jin, and Aruto. Everyone else's belts were destroyed.
Yeah, not Yua no, Horobi not really. His arc belt got destroyed, but not his actual belt.
I guess that makes okay, well, if Thouser's dog, or the dog Thouser, isn't included, I think I'm gonna have to give this one a C also, for very similar reasons as the suits. I don't want to buy them, and the kind of the whole point of these shows is to make you want to buy things. And I bought a Drive belt without ever watching Drive. Versus this, I watched the whole thing, and I'm just like, I could do without even the Progress keys. Because, you know, belts are way more expensive. I don't even want to go out and buy a Progress key even though it's cheaper.
Not even Rampage Wolf? The one with the bullet chamber?
That'd be the only one that I buy.
I am again going to go one grade away from you. I'm going to give him a D.
Oh.
I'm going to give it a D because
wow.
There was just too much that didn't mean anything, I feel.
Yeah.
Like you had the arc driver, which was fine. My problem with it is with everything else being so mechanical, the arc driver didn't move at all. It just became kind of a blob. And then it becomes the arc 1 driver and it flips open and it still doesn't really do anything. It has the one progress key. And all the belts just didn't really amount to much. I think if they would have stuck to the original, like, even just if you kept the Zero-One driver, the Thouser driver, and the Shot Riser, I think it would have meant a lot more in the end than having 9 different belts for the 4 or 5 people that use them.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a D. All right, category 3. Characters, starting with our main titular hero, Hiden Aruto, Kamen Rider Zero-One. What did you think about his character throughout the entire season?
I'm so frustrated by him.
What?
He had no character development the entire show.
You think so?
Yes, he was the same person throughout most of it. And, like, I think part of it, like, his whole dreams, he was supposed to be a little bit naive, and, like, this whole idea of being able to, like, make the Humagears friends with humans and have their own dreams and everything. I think inherently he needs to be a little naive for that to happen. But at the same time, we didn't get any change in his character until he turned evil at the end, for us to find out 2 episodes later, just kidding, he's not actually evil.
I was kind of bummed that they didn't commit to that. Like, in the very last episode, they heavily imply that, like, hey, this was Aruto's plan the whole time. When 2 episodes prior to that, it was very obvious he was being overwhelmed. He was giving in to everything. And, like, yeah, for them to just completely go back on that, I am on the same side as you. I think he was very naive the entire time in trusting over and over again, oh, this Humagear has changed. Horobi has changed. And, like, there's an episode, she knows where I'm going. There's an episode where Horobi flat out tells him, hey, you're right, I do have a dream. It's murdering every single human. And Aruto goes, great, see, I told you could have a dream. Do you want to come work with me? And it's like, no, he just told you he wants to conquer the world.
And then enter him being the main bad guy again.
Yeah, and he becomes the main bad guy. We'll get to Horobi in a second. Aruto felt far too naive to me the entire time, to the point where I sort of thought he was going to end up dying. Yeah. Being the main bad. I thought they were going to make him a martyr at the end and everyone else be raised up. And I will say, everyone else did learn from him, but he was just too vanilla, too righteous the whole time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I was almost excited when he turned evil, because I was like, oh, it's something different. And there was a catalyst that explained why he went evil. Like, this entire journey, he went from being a penniless comedian to being the president of this huge company, and he had Izu next to him the whole time, and her death is what, like, catalyzed him becoming the Arc and filled him with malice. But then there wasn't a catalyst to turn him good again. Yeah. Like, it just seemed unearned almost, because he just, I'm evil. Wait, no, I'm good, and I've been good this whole time, and I was pretending to be bad just to get to this moment and make Horobi good. And it just didn't, I don't know, I just didn't like it the way it ended up.
Yeah. Like you said, the catalyst for him. So let's talk about the catalyst for Hiden Aruto. Let's talk about Izu.
She's my favorite character.
Why?
Because, like, I'm a socially awkward person myself. And so there were a lot, I could, like, see myself in Izu when she was trying to understand human emotion. Mm-hmm. Because, like, I don't know, I struggle with that myself. Like, I'm an introvert and I don't pick up on emotions easily. So there was tons of times where Aruto was, like, trying to tell her a joke. And she was just like, what? Does not compute. And I'm like, girl, I feel you. Like, yes, that's me. And so I think that her development is one of the best in the whole show. Like, her going from being just the assistant to helping to then arguably becoming sentient.
Mm-hmm. Reaching singularity.
There we go. Reaching singularity. Although it wasn't as clear with others if she actually reached singularity or not. Mm-hmm. And then I guess we can excuse the time where she became a 3D printer for like a hot second. Because you know that drove me crazy, where just her ear popped open and something came out. I will say, I don't know how much I like her coming back again at the end. I almost wish that they had left her gone. Because now she kind of has to start all over again. I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah,
they kind of touch on it in the end, but I really do think, like, you're never gonna have that Izu back that was, because that Izu would have been through so much from being with Aruto the whole time, having to literally teach him how to be Zero-One, to combining with ZAIA, which by all intents and purposes she's not anymore. She's just Izu.
And where did ZAIA go?
Yeah, ZAIA's just gone. But in the final episode, Aruto also went to ZAIA a couple times.
Right, which doesn't make sense. So, yeah. Is Izu still alive somewhere as ZAIA? But ZAIA was overcome by the Arc, and they never really wrapped up what happened to ZAIA.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to relaunch a new one in the last episode. That's what it looked like. But as far as Izu goes, I don't want to say she got the most development out of everyone. She was very dynamic, but I do think her development was the most earned out of everyone, if that makes sense. Like, we were there every single episode learning as Izu was learning. We could see her going from this cold, calm, collected machine, essentially, to someone that was crying by the end, someone that we felt for.
Yeah.
Next to our supporting writers, we'll combine them together. The A.I.M.S crew, Yua and Fua. What'd you think?
Why are you gonna combine them together?
Because I just two secondary writers, just push them together. I also think their development is very intrinsically tied to each other.
Yeah. I don't know. There was a point where I was really rooting for Fua to be the main writer, and almost saw Fua as the main writer, because he was doing so much cooler stuff. His suit was cooler. His sequence was cooler, and he also had so much more anger and passion. Like, I know that Aruto had a lot of, like, his main drive was making people laugh and making people smile, and Humagear's laughing along with humans, but, like, Fua had anger that was driving him forward, and I think that made his character a lot more interesting at the beginning. And I think the wrench that got thrown in the middle, where it was like, just kidding, your family's actually still alive, and Fua making the decision to still not reconnect with his family because it was safer, or like his family was happy the way that they were. I think that made for a really interesting backstory that felt finished. Whereas Aruto, I feel like there's so many unanswered questions. Why is his dad a Humagear? Where is his mom? Why did his grandfather raise him, and why is he... There's just so much unanswered about Aruto's backstory that Fua felt more fleshed out.
Yeah, it definitely felt like Fua, like, just like I said with Izu, Fua's whole story felt earned. He started out as that guy that absolutely hated Humagears, and he didn't just go straight from hating Humagears to loving them instantly. Thouser. He had to, like, learn each step of, like, oh no, these do have feelings, these are essentially people, they do have hearts, and he grew into loving them. Like, even when he got the little AI that he talked to, he didn't love love AIs or Humagears yet, but like he formed a friendship with this little inanimate object, and he figured out, oh, if I could do it with this, I could do it with anyone. And I really think Fuwa's whole story arc was so earned that by the end, dude, I was rooting for him to be the main rider too. I was like, yep, Aruto's going to be evil the whole time. I thought Fuwa's going to become Zero-Two, or Fuwa's going to be Vulcan, and he's going to be the hero of the story, which I was totally going to be okay with because they did all that footwork leading up to it. But him being so tied to Yaiba in the fact that he was the first one to turn and be on the team with Aruto, and Yaiba being with Thouser still and ZAIA and working for them, the whole time he was trying to pull her back to the light of like, hey, I saw this, why can't you? Like, we lead our own lives. And she was just she felt like she was very trapped by Thouser.
I mean, they did have a chip in their brain that controlled their actions, so you gotta excuse some of her behavior.
They did, but she punched him in the face anyways.
I mean, that's true. She did. They eventually overcame it. But I don't know. I felt like she in particular had so much potential to do something, and I was so disappointed when nothing actually happened because of it. Like, she started off as such a strong female writer, and like being in a position of power in a female in a show like this, like with her being in charge of A.I.M.S, I was like, heck yeah, like she's a she's a great leader. I don't know. And I just felt like she had so much potential that they never fulfilled. And she started off great, and then she dipped really low. And I don't think by the end she got quite back up to where she started.
I think the opposite of that. I think by the end she was back up there, because the end, not to say she was the only storyline I cared about, because she wasn't, but by the end, every scene she was in, I was thinking to myself, man, this is so earned. Like, this is exactly where her character should be. Her being in control of A.I.M.S finally, because before, at the beginning of the season, she was just the technical advisor from ZAIA.
Right.
So she was the one providing all the tech from ZAIA. She was like the go-between, the middleman. And by the end, her being in charge of A.I.M.S, her whole team, like, respecting her over the person that they had just met or was just put in authority, being the new ZAIA president, and halting their fire on the Humagears because of her, felt really earned. Speaking of the ZAIA president, the OG ZAIA president, Amatsu Gai, Kamen Rider Thouser. Let's talk about your favorite character in this entire show, babe.
If I have to hear 100% one more time. I know I said that horribly, but
100%.
Yeah, he just said it so many times. Just unnecessary. I was not interested in him at all. And if we're talking about things that are like really unearned, his turn is the most unearned thing.
This is the worst
in this entire show. He went from hating him, taking the company, like doing all this dirty things, and just terrible, to all of a sudden one little dog and he's a good person again.
That was his favorite dog from when he was a kid, though.
Sure, and the dog was adorable, and if there's anything I'm gonna buy from it, it's the
product
dog.
Placement at its finest.
Right. But it's also knowing, I think, a little bit that the only reason the dog was there is so that they could sell the dog also soured the turn a little bit, because it's like, this didn't feel like it was contributing to the story in a positive way. It was just like, we gotta sell one more thing, so let's put this dog in there. Who do we make it interact with? I know. Let's make this really terrible guy a really good guy.
Yeah.
Because he liked this dog that got taken away from him as a child.
Thouser, to me, is a victim of the changes that this show had to make. We'll talk about it a little later, but I think the plan for Thouser, the original plan for Thouser, was not what ended up happening on screen, to where the last 4 or 5 episodes or so, I said it in my quick review, he ends up lost. He ends up as R&D for ZAIA.
Yeah.
And which is a side of Thouser we did not see before, of him with the earpiece and the iPad scrolling through and being like, well, obviously this is Hiden Aruto because it matches 100%, blah blah blah, and it didn't feel like his character from the rest of the show. Like, I could deal with the turn if he still felt like Gai afterwards, but he was basically downgraded to the tech guy after that. Our main villains for most of the season, let's group all four of them. You got Jin, you got Horobi, you got Naki, and you got Ikazushiki. What did you think of MetsubouJinrai.net?
I cannot pronounce his name, but the spaceship guy I thought was pretty cool for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I liked that he got a little bit of a backstory with his brother being on the spaceship, and I thought that he, even when he was like switching between evil and not being evil, like he was still the same character almost. It was just like his actions were a little bit different, which I thought was interesting, whereas that wasn't true for the others. I liked Naki. I wasn't that interested in Naki, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't feel like... I guess there was the fashion episode where Naki had a lot of like the backstory going on.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that this is the first non-binary character included as a writer.
Non-binary writer, yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. I wish they had done a little bit more to make it like seem like they were more important, I guess. And then, I mean, it's Jin and Horobi. They were there the whole entire time. Jin is probably my favorite character besides Izu, or I guess my favorite writer, because I don't know, he had so much passion and so much drive behind what he was doing, and whether he was good or evil, like I just feel like he was always trying to do the right thing. And in the beginning, he felt like the right thing was following his father and doing what his father wanted to do, but you slowly saw him realize that that's not actually the right thing to do, and that he slowly got there and became a good person in the end. But I think that even when he was a bad guy, he was still trying to be a good guy. He just didn't know what good was yet.
Yeah.
And then Horobi... Horobi was all over the place, and I feel like it's just a lot of emotional damage.
He was very headstrong the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, he was right no matter what until the very end.
Yes.
Jin, for me, had the most striking first scene of any Rider villain I've seen so far. Like, Jin pulled up with a gun in his first scene and shot somebody. Not like the toy guns, not the shot riser, like it was a legit pistol and like shot somebody. And like I remember seeing that and being like, what is this new Ryuwa generation? What are we getting? Like, who are these villains? It was like just instantly grabbed me. And from then on out, he still uses the gun. Even when he was quote unquote on the good side, he still had the gun with him, which was kind of cool. I think his turn in the middle isn't quite Thouser level of turn, but it's definitely like he died and then he came back and all of a sudden he's good. He was kind of mysterious at the beginning, but all of a sudden he's better than he was. I think
that's true.
I think they earned that the more it went on, but I think at the beginning it was very jarring what happened.
And I don't feel like we fully figured out why he came back. We figured out that it was the new ZAIA president that brought him back.
Yeah.
But they never fully explained why he was brought back.
Or how. It was just like...
Yeah.
The president just kept saying, I brought you back to make sure ARC didn't win, basically.
Right. And he had that new Humagear, like the super sleek...
Yeah, the little Bluetooth thing.
Yes. Instead of the big old headsets.
Yep.
Then Horobi also had in the last episode. Horobi ended up with the super sleek little one.
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering it came from ZAIA and not from Hiden.
Yeah.
Well, so, like, how do those technologies work together?
ZAIA had the ZAIA specs, so you would have thought that was what Jin was wearing when he came back, but no, just a little earpiece. Naki, for me, I felt people kept saying like, oh, Hiden Aruto, he's the bridge between the Humagears and the humans. For me, that was Naki the whole time. Naki,
because he was inside.
Naki was
head.
literally a human and a Humagear at one point, more or less. And then at the end, Naki, they fully become the bridge between human and Humagears when they join A.I.M.S as the first Humagear agent of them. And Yua says it in her last scene that like, hey, we're going to protect both people, so we need to be a part of both people. And I think that says a lot throughout the whole season of Naki's journey. Even though we didn't see a lot of it, I think we saw enough to show that like, oh, they are the only person right now capable of knowing what both sides of that coin are.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't considered that. It does make sense though that. Yeah, I guess he is, or they are better at being that bridge than Aruto is.
Yeah, and Ikazuchi is just the big brother the entire time.
Yeah.
The big brother of Metsubo Jinrai, big brother of Subaru, the big brother of that whole space program and everything. That was his role the entire time, so he didn't get much rider time. But whenever he was on screen, like, you damn well bet he was protecting someone, or he was giving someone a big lecture and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of lectures, and then the stern look and walk away.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what you did wrong. All right, so to wrap up characters, we have to give them all 1 grade.
Oh.
Bree, what is your grade for the characters of Zero-One?
It's so hard to give them all 1 grade, especially since I'm not the biggest fan of the main rider, because I don't feel like he had a ton of story development, but I think there was enough secondary riders make up for it and have their backstories. So I think I'm gonna give. Can I give minuses?
Yeah.
Okay, B minus.
B minus. Yeah, I definitely think the secondary riders raised up what Aruto was lacking, because all of them got far more character development than I think he did up until the last couple episodes.
And even backstory, like. We still don't know that much about Aruto's past. Like, why is his dad a Humagear? What I remember, we thought in the beginning, one of our biggest theories was that Aruto was like half Humagear or something, was fully.
I saw that everywhere.
Right, because that would explain why his dad was a Humagear. But even they just could have done so much, and even included like 1 episode of like Aruto, maybe when he was trying to teach Izu about emotions, saying like, well, I lost my parents at a young age in a car crash, and I was raised by a Humagear, and that's why I have so much passion for Humagears. Like, that 1 sentence could have added so much dimension and depth to his character and explaining so many things that, like, I don't know. Which is why it's like a B minus, because I loved the secondary characters a lot, but I feel like Thouser, who was who was like the main bad guy for the middle part of it and the main rider for the whole thing, just had a lot lacking that could have been different to keep it out of the B plus A range.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a C for characters. I think the weaknesses of Aruto dragged it down a lot for me. Also, I think Thouser could have had a lot more character development, and you could have made that turn seem far more earned if he spent maybe not 9 episodes getting his ass kicked by every single character.
I mean, that was fun for me to watch because I did not like him.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So
it was great in the moment, but then like hindsight is 2020. Looking at it from the backside, I'm like, oh, we really didn't need that much.
No.
The whole time from every single writer multiple times.
It made me sorry for the wardrobe department, who had to find new white clothes for him every single episode. When he ended up covered in dirt and blood and just crap all over him, and he would just like limp away, and then the next scene he'd be in bright new white clothes again.
Yep,
and I'm just like, those poor people.
All right, plot. We'll go kind of quick through the sagas, and then we'll talk about it overall as a whole. A lot of people will kind of break this series down into 4 different sagas. So first, yes or no, if you liked it, the introduction saga, or the MetsubouJinrai.net saga, would be episode 1 through 16. Hiden Intelligence and A.I.M.S faced off against MetsubouJinrai.net, who seek the extinction of the human race.
Yes.
Yes, you did. I did as well. I thought that was very promising. That's what made me initially super invested. So, the ZAIA Workplace Competition Saga, which I don't think needs an introduction. Did you like the ZAIA Workplace Competition Saga?
F-.
Nope, I did not like it either. I think
it went on for way too long.
It says here episodes 17 through 29, which is 12 episodes, which seems insane that I've watched entire series that are 12 episodes where more happened than this range of episodes.
I hardly even remember them, and I think it's like, one, because it was the earlier episodes, and this show is just so many episodes, but I just blocked them out a little bit because they did not feel like they were serving a purpose. Why do I need to see these competitions of where, and I think it would have been more interesting if it changed a little bit every time, but every single time it was the Humagear doing the right thing, and then the human with the ZAIA spec cheating in some way. And we saw that same storyline for every single competition that they did. I just got bored of it.
Yeah, and every episode in that arc was a 2-episode arc.
I just got so annoyed by the end of it. I'm not gonna lie, that there was a part where I was like, I'm not gonna keep watching with him. I'm gonna stop because I don't know, I just wasn't excited to watch them trim flowers in what was a hotel lobby.
Yeah.
I could care less about that arc.
That makes sense. Me too. F- on that one. The Hiden Manufacturing Saga, which is a shorter saga. Here it has episode 30 through 35 because they had to go on hiatus and COVID and the everything happening in the world. What did you think of that? That is explained as Aruto establishes Hiden Manufacturing after ZAIA Japan's takeover of Hiden Intelligence. Meanwhile, Metsubo Jinrai seeks to fully revive art.
I think I loved parts of it. I hated parts of it. I think the parts that I loved were Ua coming to join them.
Yeah, I wish we would have saw more of that.
Yes. I think I also loved Aruto, like, maybe this was like a little bit of character development where he was like, I don't care, I don't need this big company, like, this is my passion, I'm gonna keep doing it. And I thought that was interesting that he was gonna start his own business. And I loved Izu, like, quickly registering it in her mind, or like going online and registering it so that she could go with him.
Yeah, she was like, no, he's still the president, so I'm gonna go with him.
Right. I thought that was a really cool way to like make sure she could stay in the main story with Aruto. I wish I would have seen it play out more, but because of COVID, we lost the 5 episodes that we were supposed to get, and I would have loved to see where this story arc was going, because it definitely hooked me back in after the terrible competition arc. Yeah, I just wish we would have seen where it was going. It feels a little unfulfilled.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last saga, episode 36 through 45, the Arc Saga, which is everything we've been through up until this point after COVID. Aruto and his allies battle against the newly autonomous Arc and its plans to destroy all of humanity. What did you think about the final saga of Zero?
I don't know, there's just so much that happened, and I think the biggest thing when we came back, like, we had that huge hiatus, and when we came back, the first thing I thought was the art direction of the show was so much different.
Yeah.
Like, they were, the 5 episodes, they still had that budget, and they just put all that budget into the last 5 episodes, and we came back to a totally different show art-wise, where they had a lot more close-up of the face, and they had a lot of shots where it was like a red background in Aruto's face.
Yeah.
And like it was very interesting to see that part of it. Plot wise, I don't know, watching the arc jump back and forth between the 4 of them got a little tiresome at one point, just because I wanted Jin to be able to be good, and I kind of enjoyed watching him struggle and figure out, like, I want to be with Horobi, but I also know what Horobi wants is not the right thing. And so that was kind of interesting, but I don't, like, Naki and the spaceship guy.
Ikazuchi.
There we go, Ikazuchi. I don't know, they just felt kind of useless during this last arc.
They just felt there a lot of the time.
Yes. But I also feel the same for Bua and just the secondary writers in those last 5 episodes meant almost nothing. And like even Thouser meant almost nothing.
Yeah, they kind of, especially in the last 2 episodes, they showed you that visibly because for the final battle, they were all just in a room together.
Right.
Doing what amounted to nothing because Jin is revived but never talks to Horobi or Aruto. So he's not the catalyst for them to stop fighting.
I really did not like the last episode solely because no one else did anything that was important. Like you said, they were all in a room, and like even Thouser was there, and they were like working hard to get Jin back, but then Jin did nothing.
Yeah.
And then just disappeared, and then somehow Jin got a body again. But they never explained how that happened. They never explained. And it was just, and I know that the way the Kamen Riders work is you tease the summer movie, but like we already had so many writers. I got so annoyed when they were like, and here's another writer for you. And it's a character we have never seen before. Just all of a sudden come out and it's like, I'm the new guy. And it's like, we just are wrapping something up. And I know had COVID not happened, it would have been a lot earlier on.
Yeah, we usually get that for the summer movie. It's usually a new writer, new evil writer, but we usually get that 5 episodes before the end or 6, 7 episodes before the end, so it doesn't feel so tacked on at the end.
Right, and I think that's how it felt. Because overall, now I don't feel like the season is actually over. Yeah. There's no real closure where, like, if it had happened when it was supposed to, like, one-offs happen all the time. And it's like, oh, that, like, Azu coming happened not in the main series. It happened in a one-off, the clip show, that you had to watch to understand kind of where she came from. Yeah. And I think I would prefer that than the other way, where it's like they introduce him in the main story and in the season finale or series finale. Because now I just feel like it felt like a new arc was starting instead of show ending as a whole.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is if it was just that writer showing up, it would have been different. But Azu was pretty much the big bad throughout the last 6
saga,
episodes.
Yeah.
And her being still, like, not dealt with at all from any, like, no one even acknowledged that she was there at the end.
Yes.
In the whole last episode. Yeah, her feeling left out of that whole resolution felt kind of cheap. Yeah. But for me, you can attest to this. Those 4 episodes before the finale are the most hyped for the show I've ever been. Yeah. There was something different. You could feel it. The art direction, like you said, you won't get it, but it felt to me like Kamen Rider O's. There was the tapestry everywhere.
I won't get it.
Like you haven't watched O's.
I was like, what?
But there was the tapestry everywhere. There was the wings on Jin as he died. Like there was just something about it that changed the tone of everything. And Aruto being the big bad felt like something special when it happened. Right. And like you could kind of see it coming if, like, throughout at least that episode, you can kind of see it coming. But when it happened and the effect that it had on every single character just felt special. And then they kind of, like, the ending was fine for me. It did what most Kamen Rider seasons did, which I really hoped it wouldn't. And it was just kind of like, wrapped it up and was like, here you go. Here's everything just how it started.
Like, yeah. Happy, nice little bow.
Happily and just how it started. Like, nothing really changed. Everything's the same, almost. So, give me your whole wrap-up. What did you think of the entire season?
I think the show, more than Gai-M or the ones that we've, like, talked about, felt more segmented. Like, the fact that I can point out the competition arc. And if I ever told anyone to watch the show, I would tell them to skip those episodes.
12 episodes.
Like, there's no point to them at all. And then how the end, it was refreshing in the end. But I also think people hardly watch series, especially like this week by week. Yeah. And I think if someone were to binge like Zero-One out of context without knowing what episode COVID happened at, I think they would be very confused why all of a sudden that switch happened.
Do you think it would be a better show binged?
That's an interesting question. I think we spent so long waiting for it because even in the 45 episodes, there was the 2.5 month hiatus. So it's a really long season. I think it would be, maybe it would be better binged so that you don't pay attention as much to certain episodes.
Yeah.
I feel like every Friday night or Saturday, we would sit down and be like, okay, what's going to happen this week? And then very often at the end, I was like, okay, I didn't learn anything at all. Or nothing at all happened in this.
Nothing moved forward.
Right.
Yeah. And
so I think at least if you were binging it, you would always have the next episode to where you would have something hopefully happen in that next episode. So I think it would be better binged as long as you go into it knowing that it changes in the end. Otherwise, I feel like caught really off guard.
Yeah. For me, this is the first, not the first, but for me, this is very obviously a very okay season. Like, I watch it and don't get me wrong, I see all of your reactions online and I see everyone saying this is the best season since Gai, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills sometimes because it is not a good season. It's not a great season in my mind at all, but it's very okay. It's very serviceable. I get why it went where it went. I have a theory actually that this show was supposed to end completely different, and not only COVID, but all the other events in the world changed what this season ended up being, and you can very clearly see it in the final arc when you watch it. But yeah, COVID gave them the time off, but it also gave them time to think and incorporate this stuff. I do think that Gai was supposed to be Arc 1 in the end, because Arc 1's design is very much lifted right off the ZAIA spec from the X on his chest to the ZAIA spec chip in his foot. It's all the ZAIA spec. I think Gai was supposed to be Arc 1, which is why Gai ended up feeling so useless in the last couple episodes.
And they were like, what else are we going to do with it?
Yeah, and they switched it from that to being Aruto versus Horobi so that they could show that, hey, you can be on opposite sides of the spectrum. You can have different views, not see eye to eye, and still feel empathy for each other. I think that's what ended up being the theme of that final arc, is empathy of, hey, you lost this person, I lost this person because of each other, but we can make sure that doesn't happen. We can break that cycle of malice. Even, I think I'm looking very deep into it, but even the Humagears, I think, were not in the position they were supposed to be in the end, whereas you see all the riots happening everywhere, and I think the Humagears in Zero-One were always the one rioting. They were always the one attacking people.
Yeah.
I think what was supposed to happen was the people were supposed to be the people rioting, saying we don't want the Humagears anymore, because we never really got that moment. It touched on it a little bit, and we just ended up disposing of all the Humagears. But then they come back and nobody really cares. Nobody says anything.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too.
Yeah. So to have the Humagears, the people doing the rioting, I think that was very much tied to what's happening in the current climate of everything, of like, okay, let's have the oppressed people of the show be the ones fighting back a little more maliciously than we would have wanted, and let's have the humans show strong, which is what they showed with the vice president and everything, of like, hey, we just need to break this cycle. And then that's another thing that they didn't really wrap up. Like, the vice president's last scene was him holding back the Humagears from attacking the company, and then nothing from that. So, like, we can infer what happened, but I think it would have just been so much stronger if they would have showed it and gave us that resolution. But I do think they had to kind of think of their feet and change a lot of the writing, which is why this last part of the season felt so much different, because I think they just went back to the drawing board on all of it.
Yeah, sorry. I agree with you. I think I'm processing what you said, because I hadn't taken that into consideration. Like, we didn't talk about the last episode much before we filmed this, because we wanted to, like, show a lot of the reactions live. I think it does make sense because not only is the US experiencing a lot of protesting, but tons of other countries are having not the same issues, but protests breaking out for a variety of different things. Like COVID, I think COVID showed a lot of how a lot of systems in the world just don't work well for everyone. Yeah. And I think it had a huge impact on how the show was affected. I think it's interesting that you thought the humans were going to write, because to be honest, the humans, besides the main characters, didn't play a huge role in this at all.
Yeah, which is why I thought, like, in the end, the Humagears were the ones that kept turning bad, and I thought we were leading up to the humans just being like, hey, why are we still using these things? Like, throw them all away. They are trash, right. Obviously, they're defective. Stop using them. And that, I think that would have been the obvious place to go, and then show in the final battle some way, either Izu sacrificing herself and all humans saying like, oh, they're not that bad. They do have hearts, and show humans that. But I don't think it would have been a good look to show the oppressed people being the people like that you're saying throw away those people, like though they are obsolete. So I think they flipped that on its head to those people being the ones fighting back.
I think humans were very much portrayed as like sheep almost throughout the whole series, where they kind of just listened to whatever was being sold to them. Yeah. Like, there were Humagears, these are great, let me buy a Humagear. ZAIA specs, these are great, let me do it. Oh, Humagears are bad? We don't want Humagears anymore.
Raid Risers to kill the Humagears, let me buy one of those.
Right, I think there's a scene I remember being, like, pretty upset about, because it made no sense at all. It was like a commercial, or like right after the Raid Risers came out, and it was like a mother and son were in a park, and then they were getting attacked, and then the mother all of a sudden went,
she just takes it out,
and like, right, and I was like, that's not gonna happen. Like, normal human beings would not do this. Even if they were getting attacked, like, normal people just won't do that. And so it seemed really odd that there was like a lot of consumerism shown here, and I think it is odd that the Humagears, whether it was unwilling or not, the Humagears were the ones, like, essentially being turned evil and being corrupted. But it was always through the actions of humans, treating them badly, or like, basically treating them badly. So I think it's very interesting that towards the end, we did see that sudden switch where before they could just turn all the Humagears off and not care. Yeah. So, like, why didn't they turn all the Humagears off in the last episodes?
Yeah, when they started writing.
Right.
There's a lot in this show that seems like they set these rules for themselves, and they set these rules about how the world works, and then when they need to, they just kind of got lazy and cut the corners. Like we talked about the Izu printing out of her ear, the 02 belt printing another the 01 belt by the end. A lot of it just didn't work. And like, we can suspend disbelief all we want, but if you're telling us this is how the world works and then you're blatantly going against that, it throws the entire thing off for me.
Don't get me started. You know how much I hate that the Humagears were crying. They're robots. Robots can't cry. They
can have hearts, that's fine. But like, reaching singularity doesn't give you organs that you don't have.
Right. They don't have tear ducts to cry. Like, they're a machine, and they need, because you can still convey emotion without actually crying, or at least make it cool, like oil. Like their blood is blue. Yes, their blood is blue. Maybe not blue because that would be blood dripping out, but like maybe oil or something else. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, as they are shown as being oppressed, but they're still machines at the end of the day, and so I felt like it felt a little odd and that's the nature of AI, and the fear of AI is that one day it's going to reach singularity and you're going to have these kind of issues that you have to deal with. But yeah, that was one of my biggest like silly pet peeves, is that they cried tears instead of crying oil or something else.
So, wrapping it up on the plot, what would you give the plot for Kamen Rider Zero-One.
Putting Gai at an A+. Let me set my scale. Putting Gai at an A+, I think maybe putting Drive at like a B, even though I haven't watched a lot of Drive. I think I would put it at like a C-. Yeah, a C-.
I have to give the show a hard C. There are just too many episodes that I left
that meant nothing.
Either feeling unfulfilled or feeling unhappy about them. Not just because like what I wanted to happen didn't happen, but like what the logical thing was supposed to be happening wasn't happening. There were too many episodes where a lot of the characters acted completely out of character for themselves. My main offender would be Fua, growing as a person, learning to love everyone, learning to talk through his problems, and then leaving Aruto alone after Izu dies.
Oh yeah,
because
you hated
that is not something that character would do at that point in his journey, and it made me mad. So I think there was too many episodes where I felt that feeling. So I'm gonna have to give it, for plot, a hard C. And there you have it, everybody. Our final grades for Kamen Rider Zero-One right there on the screen, tallied up, averaged out, and yeah, that's our final say because we said so. So deal with it. But of course, as always, we want to know your opinions. Leave them in the comments section down below. Don't forget, we watch Kamen Rider every Tuesday night, twitch.tv/Achilles, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can come out, watch it with us as a community, especially next Tuesday, because that's the series premiere of Kamen Rider Saber, Brie.
Oh, yes.
Yes, she hasn't decided if she's going to watch it with us.
I think I'm going to at least start off watching it with you. I think Zero-One made me realize that I much prefer binging kinds of shows.
Yeah.
Mostly because I like to create theories in my brain, and I think it kind of sours if my theories don't work out. I'm like, oh, that's such a stupid way of doing it. And so if you binge it, you don't have as much time to create and ruminate.
You just gotta go.
Right, on your own theories, because you just go. So I might start like watching the first 5 and then wait a while until I can binge some. I think that's what I might. But
okay, well, Brie might watch it with us, but if you want to be friends with me, go find me on social media. They're all right there on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, quick reviews right here every Tuesday morning. And also, we have a video coming out every Thursday. Some more of them featuring Brie, if you're happy with that. And video games, if you like that.
Oh,
because
no.
she does not. Thank you for joining us so much on our Kamen Rider Zero-One wrap-up.